Hey everyone, we are back. Here you have your cameras on. Got Yella, where's your camera? Lula, Arlene. Cameras on, please. All right. So, risk management. Now, this is a very, very long chapter, but I will go more in detail if you're taking the brokers course. There's not many questions in the state exam regarding risk management. There's a few things that are touched, right, obviously, but it's not heavily tested. It's good to understand how to manage your risk, right, and how to reduce liability so you can protect yourselves out there on the field, all right? But a lot of the questions that pop up in the state exam, they're already addressed under disclosures. That's one of the ways to reduce your risk, right? So what we're going to talk about is risk management strategies, first of all. And what is risk? Let's start with risk. The risk is the chance of losing something, right? So risk is, what are your actions, right? What are your actions or inactions, right, going to cause in your life, right? So in this case, there's two dimensions of, or the probability of occurrence of something happening or not, right? And the extent of exposure to monetary or non-monetary consequences. Since risks are related to judgments and decisions, the real estate license, who makes numerous complex decisions every day, the licensee, faces a degree of high degree of risk potential. So, risk management is a structured approach to dealing with uncertainties and consequences of risk. In real estate practice, the aim is to reduce the risk to an acceptable level through anticipation and planning. So, is there anything that will be risk-free? You know, there's a lot of people that ask, what can we do to reduce the risk, or any investment with no risk? And there's none. In fact, when we're talking about risk, I said inaction or inaction, right? Because if you don't take action, you have no risk, right? Is that the way it goes? If you take no action, you have no risk? Not always true. For instance, if you have a job and you decide to stay home, like you take no action, you stay home, right? If you have days available at your job, maybe you get away, right? You get away with not losing your job. But if you no longer have days available and you say, let me stay home, you have always the risk of losing your job. So that inaction of not getting up and going to work risks your job. In real estate, I can guarantee you, as a realtor, as a salesperson, if you take no action, I can guarantee you'll be out of a job. Not because of your broker, but because you'll be broke. So I can guarantee you, inactivity, no action, it's a guaranteed no money maker. This is one of those businesses that you have to take action. You have to do something and make the right decisions, right? And that's why we have a high degree of risk potential. Now, how can we reduce risk? The easiest ways, one is avoid it, right? But there's some things we cannot avoid. So instead of avoiding it, we can try to reduce it, right? And then the things that we cannot avoid and that we reduce, there's another way, which is transferring the risk to somebody else, like insurance, right? And then retention is, no matter what, I know this is it, so how can I manage the rest of it, okay? So, again, avoidance, reduction, transference, and retention. Now, Not all of these strategies are always possible or available, but a real estate firm or licensee who fails to make a conscious effort to employ one or more of these increases the likelihood of loss for many potential risks that are always present in the real estate business. Avoidance includes refraining from an activity that carries risks. Like one can avoid the risks of being in an automobile accident by not riding in automobiles, right? Simple. Don't get in a car. You don't get into a car accident, right? Sorry, sometimes I have to catch my thoughts before I say something that might offend a few people. I was going to say something that would lead to political views, so I stopped right there. That's why the pause. All right, next. So by avoiding the automobile travel, one is confined to modes of transportation such as buses and walking, and that do not offer the same high degree of personal freedom and efficiency. So you risk one thing or you risk another, right? A broker, for instance, complete avoidance risk in real estate practice is almost impossible. A broker, for instance, may believe that hiring only experienced affiliates eliminates the risk that the affiliates will commit licensing violations. However, even experienced practitioners may not know the law, and sometimes, right, people break the law deliberately. The risk may be reduced, but it still remains. By hiring people with experience, we reduce the risk, but it's still there, right? Now, that was avoidance. Reduction involves taking steps to reduce the probability or the severity of a potential loss. However, this strategy may result in reducing risk in one area only to increase in another. A familiar example is a sprinkler system that dispenses water to reduce the risk of fire, but at the same time, it increases the risk of water damage, right? In the real estate practice, one risk reduction is to share responsibility for making a decision. So the agent provides the consumer with expertise, right? And perhaps some advice, but lets the consumer decide how much to offer. In this way, the agent gets some relief from the risks inherent in the buyer's decision to purchase. See, ultimately, you can make your suggestions all day long, saying, "Hey, I think this property is worth 300," right? But if the buyer says, "No, let's do 280," like, today's market is a little tough for you to be lowballing, but sure, I'll put 280. It is your property. It is your offer, right? They lowball it. They lowball the offer, as an example, in today's market. They lowball the offer. It does not get accepted, right? And who's to blame? Usually it's us, by the way. But who's to blame in this case, right? They will blame you, and you'll be able to say, "Unfortunately, I told you that the market, today's market, 300,000, that's the value, so you should be at 300 or higher." Don't try to lowball, or you could be just a little bit lower if you want, but $20,000 lower, not in today's market. Again, right? So you reduce the risk by making sure that they make that decision. Transference means passing the risk to another party by contract or other means. So the insurance policy, for example, is a transference or assignment of risk. So sometimes the wording of a sales and personal service contract can transfer the risk without resorting to insurance as well. In the real estate business, the transference is typically and most successfully accomplished by means of errors and omissions insurance policy. Now, as the name says, errors, which is mistakes that we make, omissions is something that we did not disclose. So the E&O insurance policy that every realtor has to have, or every salesperson has to have, is a means of transfer of risk. Okay, so either the individuals have it or the firm itself has it and asks the individuals to pay. All right, and finally, retention. Retention of the risk is, I already know what the risk is, and I'm ready for it. Right? Retention is you're ready for the risk and the responsibility for the consequence. Okay, nobody really. Like, there's barely anybody that says, "Yeah, I know what I'm getting myself into," and at the end says, "Yeah, I knew what I was getting myself into." No? Most people says, "Don't worry, I got this. I know." At the end, it's like, "Don't tell me you told me so." Right? Nobody admits It's funny. All right, risk management procedures. One of the ways we can reduce risk, also education. So evolving, like I told you guys about this already, evolving in this profession helps reduce the risk because now you start becoming an expert in a particular field, evolving. Disclosure is key to reducing risk. Disclosure and education go hand in hand, but disclosure is key. And if you can put it in writing, documentation and record keeping, put in writing that you did disclose, that's it, even better. All right? And then, of course, insurance. We already covered that. So, again, this is very simple. Education. It's the first line of defense against risk. Okay? First line of defense. So when agents are familiar with the forms provided by the office, how and when to complete them, and where to send them, the likelihood of errors is reduced. Okay? Notice that it says reduced, doesn't say eliminated, because it doesn't matter how experienced you are, does not matter how experienced you are, guys, you will always make mistakes. Always. There's nobody that I know that does not make a mistake in a deal. There's no perfect deal. There's nobody I know that does not make a mistake in a deal. Done. Got a message here. Oh. Sorry, I couldn't read something. All right, I just got a message from Andrea. Oh, cool. So Andrea says, you're the greatest with this, for these videos. I just want to reach out and say thanks for sharing. Definitely helps us study. Well, Andrea, I'm happy, very happy, and you're always welcome to join the live classes and ask questions directly if you want. All right? So really, really happy that it helps you. All right, so back to this. Again, there's nobody that will ever go through a transaction without making one tiny mistake, if any. Right? So likewise, agents need to be able to identify and understand common contract elements, complete contract forms developed by attorneys, and evaluate offers received from co-op agents on their listings without committing license violation or a breach of law. In some states, brokers have a legal obligation to provide training to affiliated licensees. Licensees also have the obligation to seek out appropriate education and training outside of the brokerage to ensure that they know how to comply with the law. So let me stay right here for a second. If you notice, in some states, brokers have the legal obligation to train, right? Some states, right? The brokers have the legal obligation to train. So imagine you getting into this business and your broker says, you're on your own, right? This is key, guys. Brokerage. I was just saying that to somebody that passed the exam and it was here today. I was just telling him this. Whenever you're going to interview realties, right? Make sure when you talk to the brokers, you analyze what they are as far as a leader. Not about the commission structure. Guys, stop thinking in the beginning. Stop thinking about the commission structure. Think about leadership. There's companies out there that offer 100%, leadership sucks. There's companies out there that offer you 50-50, but leadership is great, right? So the point is, there's companies, they're franchise companies that offer you the world and they suck. And then the same franchise but different office, they have great leadership, right? So the key here is to look for who's going to guide you to the next step, who's going to show you how to make your first dollar, all right? That's key. Very important, okay? So some brokerages in some states, I'm sorry, they force the brokers to train. But look what it also says. It says licensees also have the obligation, because remember, you are independent contractors. So you have the obligation to seek more. Okay? It's not about, no brokerage is going to have all the training you need. None. Okay, no brokerage is going to have all the training you need. You can tell me any brokerage right now, and I'll tell you no, and where do they fail. Okay, there's not going to be 100%. So you are also responsible for taking the extra step to specialize in whatever you need to specialize, because maybe your brokerage does not, right? So these are the things I'm trying to tell you. You want to reduce, education is key. In addition, licensees must also satisfy legal requirements, right, for continuing education, while those who care for personal excellence will seek further education and training to enhance their professional skills. Okay? By ensuring that all parties have information they're entitled to, proper disclosure reduces the risk that clients and customers will accuse a licensee of misleading or inducing them to make a decision with incomplete information. Further, laws in every state require disclosures of one kind or another. Disclosure may be in writing or verbally, you guys already know, or may or may not require written acknowledgement from the receiving party. These are the required disclosures. For instance, agency relationships. Can you guys tell me what are the agency relationships that you know about? Let me know in the chat. Agency relationships you guys know about. Let's switch here. YouTubers, you're welcome to participate. Agency relationship you know about. Mr. Badur says dual agency. So you're right, but dual agency is illegal. You're right on something, but dual agency is illegal. Lula, broker, salesperson, you're talking about licenses. I'm talking about agency relationship. What is agency, first of all? What is agency? Come on, guys. What is agency? Help me out. Nope. Nope. And rejected. Try again. Like I said, you're doing great here. Brother, doing great, but it's illegal. So there's just one thing missing in this one. One thing missing. All right, let me help you. Agency equals employer-employee relationship. Agency is employer-employee relationship. It's a fiduciary relationship. Great. So what type of agencies can we have? What type of fiduciary relationships can we have? Was it that long ago that you guys don't remember anymore? And I gotta start having buttons here every time so I can play those cool sounds. Oh, if we have dual, we can have single? Sure. But what type of single agency? What does that mean? Right? Not the Beyonce song, okay? Single agency. All right, time's up. Seller's agent, buyer's agent, disclosed dual agent, or transaction broker. See, Mr. Badur, you wrote dual agency. That's illegal. Disclosed dual agency is legal. So, seller's agent, that means you represent the seller. Employer-employee relationship, you got hired by the seller. Buyer's agent, that means you represent the buyer. Okay? Buyer, because you got hired by the buyer. Disclosed dual agency. Disclosed dual agency means that both the seller and the buyer are aware that you represent both parties. And transaction broker, you do not represent either one of them. You represent the transaction. So Lula, you're right. Fiduciary relationship, right? You're kind of right about the broker and the client. Yes, because the broker represents the client. But what type of agencies we have? We have dual and we have single. Under the single, we have sellers and buyers, right? Either seller agent or buyer's agent. Dual agent, you represent both. And then there's the no agency, which is transaction brokerage. Okay? See why it's good for me to always ask questions and bring you guys back? Very important. So what is agency? What does agency mean? Employer-employee relationship. Agency means employer-employee relationship. Because seller hired you, or the buyer hired you, or both of them hired you, and what can they expect from you? This is what must be disclosed. What can you expect from me, Mr. Seller? What can you expect from me, Mrs. Buyer? What can both of you expect from me if I represent both? Or, if I'm a transaction broker, what can you expect from me? So we have to disclose all this stuff. Also the property condition, the duties and obligations, as I just said, personal interest in the transaction, personal interest in referrals, and so on. Now, documentation provides evidence of compliance with laws and regulations. We're going to repeat all this, by the way, in the next chapter. It proves what clients and customers and licensees said and did in the transaction, right? So put everything in writing, right? Components of authority documented paper trail includes, so for you, make sure you do everything properly. There must be policy and procedure manuals, so within the office. There must be standard forms, so it makes no error, no room for mistakes, right? Communication records, so messages, emails, and so on. Transaction records, contracts, accounting, and other important documents. Put everything in writing. Simple. Skip a page. Here are a few standard forms that a brokerage should provide for its agents and affiliates. What do we have? Buyer and seller representation agreements, exclusive and non-exclusive. Agreement to show property, purchase and sale agreement. Agency disclosure form, property condition disclosure, disclaimer and exemption form. Lease agreements, personal interest disclosure form if you are related to the transaction. Referral for a service disclosure form, lead-based paint disclosure form, special disclosures for mold, radon, subsurface sewage, impact fees, adequate facilities and taxes, whatever, where applicable, of course. Referral agreements, independent contractor agreement, and a closing checklist. Your broker should be able to provide with the forms that are required for you to conduct business. That's what it says here. Okay. Having good communication records. Again, I talked about emails and all that stuff. Transaction records. We are on page 359. Transaction records. State laws require licensees to document transactions, right? So firms or agencies are required to keep written records of real estate transactions for a number of years. So here it says usually 3 to 5. But in the state of New Jersey, when we talk about it, guys, in a couple of days, when we talk about New Jersey, you're going to learn that it's 6 years. It's even tougher. It says usually 3 to 5. No. Got to keep it for 6 years in the state of New Jersey. So why do they need to keep these records like listings, offers, contracts, closing statements, agency agreements, disclosure documents, correspondence, and other communication records, as well as notes or any other relevant information? Why? Because you could get sued. And in the state of New Jersey, the statute of limitation, for instance, meets the requirement to keep the records, which is 6 years. Right? So these are the things you guys need to be aware of. From state to state, the requirement to keep the records matches whatever their requirement is in terms of statute of limitations. Statute of limitation in terms of lawsuit. How long do I have to sue? Okay. Mr. Badur, yes, it can be converted to digital and shredded. Okay. So not everything is done the same way. Well, so certain documents, like if I need a physical signature or something that had a physical signature, I might have to keep it. Because everything now is e-signature, right? Most of the things are e-signature. Then they have an ID attached to it. Okay? And because they have an ID attached to it, when you sign, it shows the IP of your computer where you're signing. It shows information that logs to your computer, says this is where it was signed from. Not only the IP, which is the internet address, but also locks information about your computer to say it was signed right here. And guys, be careful. Be careful, and I'm going to say this right now up front, and I'll repeat it a million times once you guys are licensed. Do not use your email for other people to sign. If they don't have an email, help them create an email. Or print, have them sign, and then you scan. Okay? Very, very important. Yeah, so DocuSign, eSign, a bunch of them, yeah, they're making a lot of money right now. Yeah, great places to invest. All right, anything that's virtual right now is going to blow up even more. There's a lot of new tech companies. All right, accounting. Obviously, keep proper records of accounting of when you receive the money and when did you deposit the money and all that stuff. General liability. So I'm going to go real quick over this. General liability insurance. So as an agency, we are required to have general liability for the agency, but then we also have to have errors and omissions. So we have errors and omissions, we have workman's comp, we have business liability, a bunch of insurances that are required for an agency to run. Okay? We can pass that down to you guys, like errors and omissions. It's to protect from unprofessional conduct or breach of contract. So if you do something like that, then the errors and omissions insurance will take care of it. It does not cover fraud. Okay, so violations of the law, fraudulent, dishonest, or criminal, malicious, whatever, like all this stuff that's intentional and against public law, right? That it does not cover. Errors and omissions, as the name says, covers errors or mistakes or omissions, something that you forgot to mention, for instance, so like negligence, right? But all the other things that were intentional, as you guys can see, these are all intentional stuff, right? All of these are not covered by insurance. Remember that. So E&O, in short, covers mistakes, but does not cover crimes. Okay? There's fire and hazard insurance, obviously, to cover for any fires or any other potential hazards. Flood insurance for flood, obviously. We have casualty insurance, like I said, the business casualty insurance. And we have workman's comp. So the workers' compensation, we carry that for you guys as well as an example, because while you're out there conducting business, see, errors and omissions is mistakes you might have, but workers' comp, while you're working on behalf of the company, showing a house or something like that, if you slip and fall, right, then you're covered. So we carry that as well. Contents and personal property that goes into casualty. So does consequential loss to use of occupancy. The company will have that. Surety bond is not required, but it'll be against losses resulting from criminal or negligent acts of an employee. Nope. The guarantee fund is from the state. Guarantee fund from the state. All these are insurances that the business carries. Okay. All right. Primary areas of risk. We have agency, property disclosures, listing and selling process, contracting, fair housing, antitrust, regulations, rules and regulations, misrepresentation, recommending providers, financing and closing, trust fund handling, and safety and security. Like I said, a lot of the stuff here, it's either we already covered or once 3 years from now, when you get your broker's license, we'll go in a lot more detail. Okay, that's why I'm skipping a few things. The risks of an agency will occur in one of two areas: either to inform and disclose, or to carry out certain duties. So here's pretty much what must be said or what must be done. These are the two areas that are covered under agency, pretty much. As far as disclosure requirements, you guys already know, right? I asked you this question and all I got was dual agent, and then I got single agent. So the disclosure requirements, for instance, is a licensee may be acting as a transaction. If anybody's lost, hold on. If anybody's lost, we're on page 361. So the required disclosures of agency, as I asked earlier, is that you're working as a facilitator, as an agent, as a sub-agent, that designated agent, single agent, dual agent, non-agent, or in some capacity. You have to let them know how you represent them or not. Okay? So regardless of the status, the licensee must follow the state disclosure requirements, which usually are: disclose verbally to other licensees on initial contact, disclose status verbally to the buyer and seller before providing real estate services. This is key: verbally before providing real estate services. Confirming that in writing then, right after, before signing a listing agreement or presenting an offer. So put it in writing. Okay? And getting a signed receipt indicating written disclosure has been made. So what they require is, let the buyer or let the seller know how you can represent them before you start representing them, not after. Don't do like it happened to one of my students a few years ago. He only got this disclosure at closing. Imagine you close and then you're looking at the paperwork and you're like, what is this? Right? This has to be given to you before, right here, before I start representing you or providing any type of real estate services. You have to be aware of what to expect from me. Carrying out the duties of agency also require disclosures of personal interest that the agent has in the transaction. Like, am I the owner? Am I the one buying? Personal benefit. Personal benefit that the agent will derive from the service referral. Required property and market information. Information about customers that a client is entitled to have, and so on. Your duties. What are your duties right here? Lula says the broker doesn't look over the paperwork of new clients. Technically, the broker doesn't have to. You're independent, right? But because the broker is responsible for your actions, if you screw up, they screw up. So your broker, especially in the beginning, should review every single document you touch. Okay? What I can guarantee you is that most brokerages have a rule. If all the documents are not there by the time of the closing, you will only get paid once the file is complete. So once you provide all the documentation, signatures, and whatever that were supposed to be in the file, right? Because it's to protect the broker and to protect you. But once you provide all the documentation, then the check will clear for you. Until then, it's an incomplete file. So in the beginning, yes, you should have a lot of support, a lot of guidance. I'm not saying that in the end you're not supposed to have it, but what I'm saying is in the beginning, like I said earlier, you need leadership. You need somebody that shows you how not to make those mistakes. Okay? Now, required disclosures duties to all the parties. So it doesn't matter if they're customers or clients. It's honesty, so you got to treat everybody honestly, right? Fairness, be fair to every single person, whether it's a customer or a client. Reasonable care and skill, and disclosures. Disclosures are always there regardless of you representing or not. To the clients, there's more. You have to have cold, right? Care, obedience, accounting, loyalty, and disclosure. You got to have a development of skills. You got to care enough. You have to do due diligence for the client. Be loyal to your client. Obey your client. Hold everything in confidentiality. Hold proper accounting, and then full disclosure. So, huge difference. Let's see again. Huge difference between these two. Honesty, fair, reasonable care and skill, and disclosures. But for a client, not to a customer, to a client, skill, care, diligence, loyalty, obedience, confidentiality, accounting, and disclosure. Like I said, cold. Care, obedience, accounting, loyalty, and disclosure. Because these, if you guys remember, I said they're all part of care anyway, because if you don't care, you won't be loyal. If you don't care, you won't hold proper accounting, and so on. In other words, hustle. Always. Okay? Always. All right? Covered that. You guys already know. Disclosure, conflicts of interest, reality. All right, so for Edith, or Edith, you want Edith or Edith? Edith. Okay, one or two. Give me one, so I don't. Edith. Okay. No, Edith. Okay. So Edith. Okay, there you go. All right, just want to make sure I'm editing correctly. So edit. Edith. Here's the thing. Some of the stuff you might not know yet because you started, but we are going to have a section that covers this more in detail. I did warn I'm going to go skim right through this chapter because most of the stuff we already covered, or it's stuff that's not applicable for the course you're going to, right? Or you're taking right now. All right, Tina, does a client have to stay loyal to you or go to another agent? The loyalty is on us to them. We're the ones that have to be loyal to them, not them be loyal to us. They should be loyal to us, obviously. But can they go to another agent when they want their search for a house? So, are you talking about while you're searching for one, or done and then later on what they're going to do? Okay, so while you're searching, there's two ways. Okay? Do you remember the Beyonce song? All the Single Ladies? Single Agency? Right, okay, great. Do you know that song, or I don't know, is it the same song? It might not be, I'm not sure right now. If you want it, then you put a ring on it. Okay. So remember that part of the putting a ring on it, right? If you really want to be serious about it to the buyer, you want to be serious about the buyer, right? You put them under... I know it's the same song. I was just messing. Thank you, Lila. I know Beyonce, okay? She's a Virgo like me. We're best buddies. All right, anyway. September 4th. I know. Come on. I'm telling you. Jay-Z ain't got nothing on me. Wait until I meet her. So here's the thing. My wife's not listening. So, what was I saying? So when I said the part of putting a ring, Tina, the idea is if you really want to hold that buyer down, put them under a contract which is called exclusive buyer agreement, right? That means that the buyer cannot go anywhere else. Any house that they find within it's like a listing agreement. Any house they find within the 6-month period, right? They were your clients, therefore they should have came to you, right? But do you think that's really the best thing to do? No, it's different than dealing with sellers. With sellers, you want that exclusivity. You want that contract. You want to put that ring on, okay? With sellers, you want that. But with buyers, no. With buyers, you don't want it, okay? With buyers, you don't want it. With buyers, you want to have that freedom, but show them that you are working for them. That is key, right? And the biggest problem you're going to have with buyers is that if you don't follow up enough, if you don't care enough, if you don't show them that you're there, right? You're going to give an opportunity for somebody else to show up. Much like in a relationship. If you don't you don't care that much in the relationship, eventually somebody will care for you, and eventually you will lose, right? It's the same thing, right? So the key to this buyer dealing with buyer things is buyer thing, right? It's follow up. That's it. If you follow up, if you show you're doing the best you can, most likely they'll never go anywhere else. Again, just like a relationship is about consistency, it's about commitment, right? And they will not go anywhere. You understand? That's pretty much what it is. So you're saying right here, you can show 20 houses and they decide to go with somebody else? Yeah. You know why? Because somebody came to say, what do you mean? Your realtor showed you 20 houses and it's been this long and he still did not find a house? That's the way it works. The grass is always greener on the other side. And if I can sell you my grass better than you can sell your own, that's it. You lose that client. So again, show what you're doing. Key. All right? Joel, you're killing me, man. You're killing me with not having your name there. I'm not going to do your attendance. I'm telling you right now. When I go pull the records, right, it's not going to show your name. I'm telling you. So Joel is asking, like, client, can I change? Can I change the agent anytime if I don't like the way he works? Yeah. Joel, that's not an excuse. There's an option there to change your name. Start charging these things, I'm telling you. I got you. Who referred this guy? Right, Ed? Terrible. What was I saying? So yeah, there's always a chance. There's always a chance that they'll go somewhere else. If you don't like their service, you can go somewhere else. As a listing agent, if you don't do the proper service, if I don't like what you're doing, I can also rescind the contract with cause, right? The cause is you're not spending enough time or you're really not caring about it. You understand? So we can always get away from the contract with anybody. Absolutely. All right. Property condition, you guys already know we have to disclose, right? So, depending on the state, the licensee may have no further duty to disclose property condition after properly informing the parties of their rights and obligations. However, the licensee may still be subject to legal action, right, for deliberately distorting the facts. That's intentional misrepresentation. By cheating any party, that's fraud. By concealing or failing to disclose adverse facts which the licensee knew or should have known. So again, we're talking about intentional or unintentional misrepresentation. If the property was built before 1978, you guys know you have to provide a Form 4. If it's prior to 1978, you have to provide a form for what? Let me know. If the property was built before 1978. For lead-based paint. Very good. Okay, Cheryl for the win on YouTube. And you guys did great too. Here, look at that. Look at that. Boom. Okay. So you guys killed it with the agency, but you redeemed yourselves with lead. Anyway. Word games. Killed it. Lead. Bullets. Anyway. All right, so I have way too much fun by myself. Can you tell I was a single child growing up? Can you tell? I don't need nobody for the party. I can have it all by myself. All right. Listing and selling process. So the nature and accuracy of the listing agreement. In most states, a listing agreement is enforceable only if it is in writing. And again, we'll talk about that later. Yes, great imagination. Huge. As I'm speaking, I have like 300 thoughts going on while I'm watching you guys and thinking what to say next. I'm just letting you know right now. So, as I was saying, so in most states, the listing agreement is enforceable only if it is in writing. And when we get to the state portion, I'll explain better what it is in the state of New Jersey, for instance. But most states forbid net listings because they violate the requirements of a valid listing agreement. That a valid listing agreement must specify the selling price and the agent's compensation. And as you guys know, net listing does not specify the compensation, only what the seller will receive. Anything above that will be the agent's compensation. Okay. The licensee, in accordance to the duty of due diligence, okay, with the duty of due diligence, must verify the accuracy of the statements in the listing regarding the property. The owner and the owner's representations. Especially important facts for a broker or agent to verify are property condition, ownership status, and client's authority to act. Okay, again, very fast. CMAs or compare market analysis, guys. We had the chapter on appraisals, and under listings, we talked about CMAs. A CMA is not an appraisal, so we cannot state that it is an appraisal. We can only talk about being a valuation of the property, not an appraisal. Okay? We could never, ever, ever mention that it is one. As we talked about 2 days ago on chapter 21, we need to be able to estimate the closing costs. That will reduce the risk. We need to be careful with advertising. We cannot do intentional misrepresentation, like talking about something that it is not, right? We cannot make promises that you may be able to enter into a contract when the other person cannot or will not abide by. We cannot make continuing and blatant misrepresentations or false promises through affiliate brokers or other persons. We cannot advertise ourselves as realtors if we are not. So we are salespeople, right? To be a realtor, you need to be part of the National Association of Realtors and so on. So you got to be very careful with your advertisements. You make sure they have authorization to post a sign on the property. Some places we cannot. If it's a condominium, we might not be able to put a sign that says for sale. Got to be careful with the authorization that's granted to us. Okay? We might not be able to remove other signs that are there. We might not be able to show property at certain times, right? So we always have to make sure you have permission from 6 to 8, show property. Great. From 2 to 4, open house. Great. But we're not going to get there, even if we have the key, the lockbox, whatever. We're not going to get there if it's occupied. We're not going to get there and just, hey, let me walk in. No, you're not going to do that. You have to have permission. On this date, I'm going to go there and see the property, even if there's a lockbox. So we always have to have permission, not just show up and enter. Unless the listing clearly says vacant property, lockbox is there, go in. Okay? We have to be very careful in handing out property condition disclosure statements, distributing promotional materials or marketing materials, advertising on the various media. So we're talking about TV, radio, but also social media. So Facebook, Instagram, now TikTok. It could be also on the website, blogs. Got to be very careful. YouTube, very careful with how you advertise and can you advertise on those platforms. Okay? And the fact of you being able to advertise or not goes back to you have permission. Did the seller say you could? All right? Because one thing is YouTube regulations or Facebook regulations or whatever, or even the MLS's regulations where you can advertise or not. Another thing is, did the seller allow you to advertise? And so on. Using an MLS, like I said, cooperate with other licensees, divide the commission or negotiate a commission split, share final data, sales data with the MLS, or the place I said lockbox on the property. Lula, did you get that in writing? What? What did I get in writing? The permission? Yeah. You should have a marketing plan. You should have a checklist of the things you're going to do, and they agree to it. Especially because you also want to be able to charge for the service, right? So I'll give you an example. The higher commission I get, the more I'm going to work for, meaning more avenues I'm going to take to advertise your property. So that's why I explained to you why I'm charging so much in commission, whether you want it or not. You want the slim package where it's just like I'll put it on the MLS and maybe a post here and there on Facebook? I'll do that. You want to go full-blown YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and so on, and Craigslist and website, and create a website just for your house, and also virtual tour and all that good stuff, and that's the highest package. Does that make sense? So we charge according to the service we provide. If you provide a lousy service, don't go there and charge 10%, right? So everything will come with experience, and also with obviously with the ratings, let's call it, the referrals, right? So we can start charging more for this or more for that depending on the experience you have. Okay, appoint sub-agents, designated agent, and so on. Scope of expertise. Real estate licensees are not by nature financial consultants, accountants, appraisers, soil scientists, well diggers, lawyers, decorators, contractors, builders, blah, 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 blah. We're not any of these by nature. So don't present yourself as one. Simple. Okay? If you happen to be one of these entities here, and one of these professional entities here, you can, we already talked about this, you can be part of the transaction and you can offer the services. Just try not to do them both in the same transaction at the same time. Can I be a financial consultant and say, hey, this is my advice to you while I'm being a realtor? I can, but I'm now endangering 2 licenses. Does that make sense? That's why even here, when I talk to you guys about term policies and talk about retirement and wills and all that stuff, that's my other profession, financial consultant, right? That's my other profession, is one of my many licenses. But I'm not here selling them to you. I'm just educating you on what you can and cannot do. Does that make sense? Okay, so be careful with what you do. Okay, be very careful. One thing is education. Another thing is providing the service or selling a service while conducting another type of business. Okay, upsell within the profession, and then after you close that deal, you sell something else. So it's a side sale. Upsell is I'm the realtor, and if you want all these services that I was saying, right, it's more. For instance, a side sale is, hey, I'm also a financial consultant, right? So I'm glad you gave me an opportunity to help you sell your home or to help you buy a home. Would you like to review potential plans to protect your biggest asset, which is this investment, and also your life and your future? Let's sit down and set up a game plan. You see what I'm saying? That's a side sale. It's not an upsale. It's a side sale because it's a separate business. Nothing wrong with that. Don't mix things. That's where a lot of people make mistakes too. Okay? So you could be liable for negligence, fraud, violation, blah, 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 all that stuff. Contracting process. Moving forward, this is recovered. Unauthorized practice of law. I just said don't become a lawyer when you're not one, so don't give legal opinion. Right here. It says right here, though I'm not an attorney, in my opinion, your understanding is that the contract is correct. So careful. Again, you're saying opinion. You're not an attorney. Make sure you put it right after. You should always consult an attorney because, again, I am not one. Rules of advertising. You got to be careful with Fair Housing Act, as you guys know. Discrimination. Very careful of that. We had a whole section on that, so I'm going to skip. Answering questions. You got to make sure that you're not steering them. And you guys already know what steering is, which is taking people either to or away from a particular area, right? Based on their race or instead of their qualifications and their desires for certain areas, okay? Listing agreements. You also got to be careful in the listing agreements. Information that you will use in the listing, right? So again, you cannot talk about race, religion, creed, color, and so on. You cannot terminate the listing if I'm sorry, you have to terminate the listing if the seller uses race, breed, or anything. If the seller pretty much, or the buyer for that matter, if they show any discriminatory practices, right? If they show any discriminatory practices, right? You have to terminate any. So reject, terminate, or even inform your broker if the seller is doing anything illegally. So terminate the relationship with anybody that intends to discriminate right away. Okay? Right away. Mr. Badur, what pitches? What are you talking about? On the contrary. But I understand what you're saying. But on the contrary, not at all. You should know by now that me, all about education. The more people know, the better it is. Okay? All right. Some people, though, that might be a little different. But information. All right. Antitrust laws. When we're talking about antitrust, you guys should know also by now that we're talking about monopoly, right? You're trying to control something because that's what monopoly is. So we have the Sherman Antitrust Act and we have the Clayton Antitrust Act. If you guys remember those, right? There you go. We did cover them before. So the Sherman Antitrust Act is about price fixing. That's why this is not highlighted because we already covered. It's about price fixing. It's about setting standards, right? When I say commission is 6% and I go run across the street and tell the competing office, hey, we're doing 6%, right? That is price fixing. We're engaging in price fixing because if we're doing 6%, guess what they're going to do? If we're doing 5%, guess what they're going to do, right? When we start establishing that standard rate across the board versus allowing people to negotiate, right? That's the problem. That's the Sherman Antitrust. Clayton Antitrust is, for instance, right here, mergers, acquisitions are likely to lessen competition. So I'm trying to control the market in a way that I'm the only one that's going to be here, okay? FTC, Federal Trade Commission, we'll cover that later. That's about still the Sherman Antitrust. Rules and regulations are state specific. License expiration, revocation, suspension, license discipline, sue for damages. Right? License expiration could happen for a couple of reasons. One of them is if you got to keep the E&O, you forgot to meet the educational requirements, or you forgot to observe the renewal procedures, which one of them is CE credits. You cannot renew until you do your CE credits or payment. License revocation or suspension. Licensees are typically revoked or suspended. Revoked or suspended when they are found guilty of obtaining a license under false pretenses. Let me zoom in on this for you guys. Found guilty of obtaining a license under false pretenses, meaning when you applied, something was wrong there in your application. You just make false representations. Committing a prohibited act, neglecting to preserve every written offer as required. So the 6 months, for instance, in New Jersey, 6 months for unaccepted offers or 6 years for accepted offers. Neglecting to deliver signed copies of accepted offers to the transaction parties as required. So you cannot hide offers. You have to present all the offers. Okay. Failing to make sure that all required terms and conditions are present in a contract to purchase. And finally, handling earnest money. Finally, handling... Oh, the cops, I'm sorry. I'm trying. They had just stopped and then start again. All right, so what was I saying? Handling earnest money and escrow funds improperly. We got that, right? Um, Licensee discipline. The real estate or state's real estate commission may assess civil penalties as well, so monetary penalties for violation of a statute, rule, or order. And you could be disciplined for acting without a license when one is required, demanding a referral fee without reasonable cause, entering into a net listing, trying to induce another licensee's client to end or change an existing agency contract, paying a commission to an unlicensed individual or company, or receiving an illegal referral fee, rebate, or kickback, or practicing with an expired license. So these are all very common, by the way. This one right here, very, very common. People try to steal your clients. It's still under contract with you, and they go there and say, hey, just drop it. I'll help you better. I have the client for you, right? So this happens a lot. Be ready. Realtors are sharks. I hate them. Right? It's true. Kickbacks, paying somebody for referrals, happens all the time. Completely illegal. Licensee lawsuits. So, first of all, so you guys know, most lawsuits are avoided. They go to arbitration first. They try to make sure we come into an agreement versus taking civil action. But if it does happen, usually is because you went against some type of federal, especially the federal laws, like fair housing, discrimination, antitrust violations, so monopoly control, right? Maybe your license law and other state law violations, breach of contract, agency duty violations. Again, these usually go for, right here, these contract, agency, these usually go for arbitration first. But illegal practice of law, that's a crime. Failure to disclose, again, arbitration first, then lawsuit. Customer or client dissatisfaction, fraud, or theft. You might get sued for these. You guys have any questions, stop me at any time, but I think this is just a good review of things that you guys already covered, right? All right, next. So you are aware the final week is pretty much reviews, right? Because we touch everything you guys already went over. Just a few things here and there. There are details we didn't yet, but the majority of it we covered. We talked about misrepresentation already, guys, right? There's unintentional. That means you did not know. So if the seller prepared the seller's property condition disclosure statement, they're the ones that know about the house better than you do, right? So if they tell you that there's no leaks, there's no mold, there's no nothing, and when you did your visual inspection of the property, like you looked up, looked down, looked to the sides, nothing appears here that there might be a leak or there might be mold. It's not my responsibility to open the wall and try to see what's there, or scrape the paint to try to see what's there. It's not my responsibility to get on the ladder and there's drop ceiling over here and see what's above the drop ceiling. It's not my responsibility. That's the home inspector, not me. Okay? It's also on the homeowner, because not even the home inspector is 100%, right? So the responsibility is on the homeowner to tell you what the issues are. So if I'm not aware of what the issues might be, these are considered unintentional, or I did not know that these things that I said were inaccurate. Why? Because I was told, right? Somebody told me, right? Now, if it's something you should have known, that means you're negligent and you might be held guilty of misrepresentation, okay? For instance, if you do not know, because again, we don't go there with a measuring tape to figure out the measurements of the property. So we rely on surveys, we rely on what the seller tells us, on public records. So we're going to say, hey, I did not know. We might be able to measure the rooms though, right? We can measure the rooms. That you should be able to, right? Make sure you do it. Tina, great question. I'll address that in 1 second. Unintentional misrepresentation describing the property, offering opinions about future growth and development of the neighborhood, or making declarative statements about the presence or absence of hazardous materials. Okay. Let me just address something before we go here. Tina's saying, does the homeowner have to get any type of inspection before listing their house for sale? All right. You want me to tell you how to get the house sold in 2 weeks? Closed in 2 weeks? The fastest way to get this done, you want me to tell you that? Is getting all the required stuff done prior to listing. So yes, getting an inspection done, getting a title search, preliminary inspection, preliminary title search, getting all of the, or even an appraisal, getting all of these done up front will reduce the time that it takes to close. But you're a homeowner. Let me ask you, Tina. Will you spend $1,000 prior to listing? If I tell you right now, all you got to do is do an inspection, an appraisal. You know what? Maybe a little bit more, $1,500. Let's make it like that. $1,500. So the appraisal, the inspection, and the title search. Would you spend right now that money to list your property? You would. Okay, raise your hand. Anybody that would spend that money to list their property right now? Nobody? See, here's the thing. Most sellers, good luck with this. Most sellers, they want to sell for a reason. They want money. Most sellers, they want money. There's barely any seller that says, just tired of this house. Find another one, right? Nobody goes like, I'm bored, right? Unless you're uber rich and you're one of those people, like snob people, like, yeah, I'm tired. I've been here already for 24 hours. Let me go to another house for $10 million, right? Nobody does that, right? So people have a reason to sell. There has to be something. Okay, now you're saying something. You want to sell quick, but Tina, why would you have to sell quick? So depending, no, hold on. You don't have to type. My point is, unless there's a pressing need, and even depending on the pressing need, like lack of money sometimes, but if there's a pressing need, people don't comply with this. Nobody says, yeah, I'll spend the money that the buyer's supposed to spend. Go ahead, I'll do it. Nobody does that. So, can you? If you explain properly to the seller that that's the best way, if you really need to sell quick, this is what we got to do. If you really want to sell slow, this is still what we got to do. Because later on, there might be issues that come up from inspection. Isn't it better to know up front? There might be issues on your title, just like credit reports. You know that sometimes things are inaccurate on a credit report. Shouldn't we pull the title and figure out what's there? Okay. Let's figure out if this is the true value of the property, because you want to list for $1 million. I think it's worth 600. Let's get an appraisal to be more accurate. It's 600 bucks. Let's do it. You guys understand what I'm trying to get at? The more you eliminate the 3 steps that are required during the contract or the contingency period, the more you get those up front, the faster the process will be. Because most likely the buyer will use your title company, will use your appraisal, will use your inspector. They're not required to, but these are third-party entities, third-party, unbiased, that have their license on the line if they are lying. You understand? So, you want to go fast? You want to get this done? Yeah, absolutely. Right? Just people don't. Majority won't. You know those signs that will say, I can sell your home guaranteed? Right? Guaranteed. The only guarantee in selling a home is if people follow certain steps, including recognizing that I'm the professional and that I will tell you your property is worth 600. You want to list for 650? It will not get sold. I guaranteed it would be sold if you followed my steps. Okay? There's someone a few years ago, he was even bolder than that. I guarantee I can sell your home or I'll buy it from you. That's it. He was so bold. This guy was so bold. He says, I guarantee I'll sell your home in 7 days or I'll buy it from you. How can I put such a bold guarantee? I used to do this years ago. 15 years ago, I used to do this when I was as an investor, right? I would guarantee in 7 days it's sold. I didn't say transaction completed. I would say sold. Like I would do lease options, for instance. Once I put the lease, the option is the purchase. Sold. As long as you agree, Mr. Seller, as long as you agree to my terms and conditions to getting your house sold, it will be sold. The moment you miss one of those steps, one of those lines that you signed or initialed, as soon as you miss that, that's it. I'm free of my claim. Are you guys understanding this? So that was a good one, Tina. That was a great question. Should they have this inspection done? Yes, they want to really get sold. Let's see. Cheryl says, usually you already know what is wrong and shouldn't need an inspection first. Just fix it. I would pull the title and get the appraisal, though. All right, Cheryl, to address that. Usually you know what is wrong, that it's visible. There's some stuff that you cannot see, but an inspector will be able to tell you. Like, I've been to inspections where I look at it, I'm like, oh, yeah, wow, I didn't even notice. So it happens. I sold a house once. It's the most ridiculous scenario ever for me, The mortgage company would not give a commitment because of chipped paint in the exterior, all right, of a window. So the window frame towards the backyard, there was chipped paint, and the mortgage company would not give a commitment until that was repaired. Okay, so Cheryl, there are certain things that you know, like if there's a leak, you know, right? If there's mold, you know. If there's a crack in the foundation that you can see, you know. But do you know about lead-based paint, for instance? Do you know about radon? Do you see what I'm saying? There are certain things that we don't know that are going to be found later. So do the inspection now. Do the appraisal now. Do the title search now. And you'll get it sold within the time frame that you want. Okay? And by the way, for advising you this, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, and if I can keep my promise of selling your home within the next month, like closing in the month, right? By keeping this promise, would you consider giving me another $5,000 bonus on my commission? Okay? That's it. I'm the pro. You're listening to me. If I'm able to accomplish what I said I'm going to accomplish, would you consider giving me an extra amount of money? Not bad, huh? You're just asking for your tip, that's all. All right, where was I? The risks of unintentional representation can be reduced. Going back, if we learn the measures and calculate areas accurately, we rely on measurements reported by others only with extreme caution and specific disclaimers. Refrain from exaggeration, obviously, and avoid stating opinions that a consumer might take for expertise. These happen all the time right here. These last two, guaranteed. Exaggeration, whew, this is the best house in the world. No other like this one on the market. Meanwhile, there's one exactly the same, just different color. No other like, look, listen. The handle just in the garage door, that alone's worth $30,000. Exaggeration, right? Realtors do the sleazy sales pitch all the time. This one, avoiding statement, this is so important. I almost lost the deal because of this. Yeah, you can rent the basement. Sure, you'll make an extra $1,000 just from that basement. In an area where you cannot rent basements. It's not a legal unit. But here you go, realtors telling them, sure, you make an extra $1,000. So your mortgage is covered. Right? The attic, you can fit some people up there too. No problem. The only way to get it there is the fire escape. No problem. They can get there. No problem. Do it. Right? See, these are things that we do all the time. And tell me if you have not heard stuff like this before. All right, raise your hand if you've heard stuff like this. Yeah, you have. There you go. Right? Again, avoid stating things that require expertise, like the city inspector and the city zoning and the COs and all the smoke certificates, all that stuff must be in place before you can say, yeah, you can rent a basement. Okay. I've heard realtors say, one of the things said, like, I have a big room over here, right? I've heard realtors say, yeah, you just divide this in half. It's an extra room. You got two doors. There's one over there and there's one over here. Divide this in half and you have an extra room. No, because you're going to put, most likely you're going to put electrical as well. And once you require electrical, you require a permit. You require a permit, then you require maybe an electrician. And sometimes even architectural work. So don't go and say stuff that you're not supposed to say, guys. Okay? That's pretty much where we're getting at. As far as intentional misrepresentation, intentional, that is considered fraud, period. If you know you cannot do something, or if you know that something is, like this is blue, right? You guys don't see what you're seeing is a color I put there, but it's actually blue if you were here in real life. But this is a blue wall. If I'm telling you it's green, like right now I could turn this into any color, but if I told you this was green, right? Then I'm telling you a fraud right away. I'm committing fraud by telling you this is a color that is not. You guys understand? Right? I can change this color at any time. Again, just giving you a quick example. I can go here and I'm telling you that the color is green. Simple, right? So, boom. The matrix effect. Anyway, you guys are good so far? Careful with your statements. Okay, the last one, recommending providers. Oh, Cheryl didn't say anything else. Cheryl, I hope I did not offend you by taking over what you said. I was just making a point that sometimes there's things we know and things we don't know. Need to adjust this, right? Right? All right. Yep, she's mad. She just gave me a thumbs up. Like, all right, recommending providers, guys. What does it mean, recommending providers? It means, hey, I know the accountant. I know the inspector. Right? I know the mortgage rep. Right? I know the attorney. I know the title company. Look, I can recommend all day, every day. You ask me, you guys need someone? I got someone. Most of the times, all you have to do is send me a message, Bruno, I need this or I need that. And most likely, I have that person for you. Okay? If I don't, I'll let you know I don't, but I'll also try to find out if I can have somebody. If any of my contacts know someone that fits what you need. But I got over, right now, a little bit over 6,000 contacts on my phone. So it's almost guaranteed that I have a contact for you. Can I recommend? Sure. The problem is, right? The problem is if they screw up, right? Let's say I recommend you the CPA. The CPA that I have, that I usually recommend to people, I think is, right now, is one of the best. Like, everybody I refer to him has been great. But if he screws up, right? And you're gonna come to me, Bruno, can't believe you recommended to this CPA. He just screwed up everything I had. Like, okay, listen. Recommendation is based on my experience that I've had with these people. I'm not a CPA, so I cannot say if he's doing the job right or wrong. Right? Remember, a recommendation doesn't mean I vouch 100% for the work they do. You understand? So it's very difficult. If you guys have any type of profession, look, I know electricians, I know plumbers, GCs, title companies, attorneys, people that do windows, people that make furniture for you, right? Built-in furniture, whatever, cabinets. Anything you can think of, I guarantee I have a referral. But can I guarantee their work? The answer is no. And that's why you got to be very careful when you are recommended, because there might be legal consequences for you depending on your statements. Okay? So there has to be always a disclaimer that to the best of your knowledge, the vendors on your list or recommended list, the vendors are competent and honest, but that the consumer is responsible for investigating or making his or her own judgment for hiring or buying. Okay? Remember that. This is key. Okay? This is key. Do not go ahead and make statements about this guy is the best in the world, cannot make anything wrong, and then they do. Guess who's liable? You. All right? So very, very, very careful with that. Financing and closing. Sorry, guys, but this blue is really killing my eyes. I imagine what it might be doing to you. Make it a little darker. A little darker. Better? A little better? No. Too dark? Ooh. Red color. Why would I put red? Jesus. If I put red, this is a problem. Are you a bull? Heads? Bull's like red. Lula says too dark. Sorry, it was really like bothering me. Even read. Ed says it's my sucker. What's your team? Okay. So is that why Kelly went to work for a company that has red in it? I know we don't have red in our colors. Is that why? Yes? That's it. Tell Kelly I'm not talking to her anymore. That's it. Tell your wife I divorced her. That's it. Joel, you heard that, right? You're the witness. That's it. All right. Financing. In the financing and closing phases of a transaction, a consumer may feel that the licensee has been incompetent and misleading. Licensees have the obligation, again, to inform and educate their clients throughout the transaction process. Surprises and accusations of incompetence and misrepresentation are among the possible results for failing to keep the party informed. Believe it or not, this happens again all the time. All the time. It's not our fault because we're not the loan officers, but failure to keep our clients informed about every step of the way of what's needed is our fault. Remember, we are the consultants, right? We are the maestros. We're the one orchestrating the whole thing. So any information we receive, we need to pass along to the client. I was actually talking about that yesterday with a loan officer here at the office. He showed up late at night. We were here until almost 11:30. But we were talking about this. The fact that sometimes the realtor calls him, right? Asks for information. And then the client calls. And then the attorney sends an email, right? And then title company is like, hey, what's happening? So wait. First of all, it's the realtor's client before anybody else, right? So before he's the loan officer client, it was the realtor's client. So any information that you obtain, realtors, you must pass along to your client right away. And if while you're doing it, why not communicate to everybody in the same email or the same text or the same everything? Right? Oh, the realtor forgot to tell him. So the buyer is calling the loan officer. And then the loan officer says something that just popped up and the realtor did not know. So now there's miscommunication. The buyer says one thing, the realtor says another, and the mortgage rep says another. All right? So make sure, good practice. Make sure you keep everybody on a single email. Unless it's something that's not related to that particular subject, right? This is something that's not related to that particular subject. Keep everybody on the single email chain. This way, I know it, you know it, client knows it, attorney knows it, so on. You guys understand? Make your life easier. Don't work harder, work smarter. Okay? You're a loan officer? So I'm going to blame you all day long. That's it. Which company you work for? You know. Don't blame the loan officer. You're the first ones to get blamed. Oh, so you work directly for a bank? Okay, cool. So are you an actual licensed loan officer, or are you a loan officer for the bank? Because there's a difference. There's like the quality control. They just get a bunch of documents, and then there's the actual loan officer. You're actually licensed. Okay, with the bank. Perks must be. Are the rates that good? What are your rates right now? What are the rates right now for 30-year fixed? You have any idea? Three and a quarter? Okay. I'm going to introduce you to a few people. Okay. I'm just messing with you. I'm going to say something right now. I do have some companies that give me lower than this, but sometimes, wait, sometimes, look, I think everybody has their value. Okay. That's again another conversation I was having with the loan officer that was here yesterday. Everybody has their value. I was telling him, just like when you go to a mechanic to drop off your car, if the mechanic's too busy, for instance, or if it's taking too long for this guy to do it, sometimes you want a mechanic that's faster, mechanic that's able to take care of you right away. Sometimes we pay premium rates, right, to get that done. So there's a lot of people that can promise you the world, like a 2.75, which 0.5% is a big difference, but then they take forever to close, which can cause other damages in your life, or not close at all. There's huge differences between lender. Sometimes, again, paying a little bit more is better than paying less, right? It's almost like that thing, you get what you pay for, almost, right? So regardless, Edith, if you don't mind, since you're here, this is also a networking space. If you don't mind, share your info so people can reach out to you. Just your name and your email here so people can copy. If you guys need a loan officer, there you go. Even after I shamed her interest rates, but I had somebody here a year ago. Says at the time the rates were almost 4%. It says no, I can get the 3.25, right? The rates were almost 4%. It says no, I can get 3.25. Okay, he was working for Santander. There you go, Santander, or whatever whatever way you guys say it. Right? Forget to put your phone number too. So, and she kept on saying, I can do this, I can do that. I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm going to send you the client. I always give everybody the benefit of the doubt. I send the client. Yeah. We had to switch from Santander to a different bank in order to be able to close. So what I'm trying to say with this is not everybody's perfect, and it's not the loan officer, it's the bank. Sometimes that's the issue. All right, it's not the loan officer most of the times. It's the bank and their rules, regulations. Right? So Lakeland Bank is a direct lender, so they don't have to jump through hoops, right? You're not brokering to anybody else. So they have their own regulations and maybe flexible and easier to deal with. It could be. If you guys want, Edit, EDMATUS, at lakelandbank.com. Okay. Ed, what's the minimum credit score? Well, that will depend on type of loan. If it's FHA, conventional, 750. You want the vanilla. You want vanilla deals. All right. So if you have $1 million, guys, if you have $1 million, you have a credit score of 800, ready to buy tomorrow, Edith can help you. 908-522-6555. 750. What kind of I'm joking around. Okay. What kind of areas do you lend to? It's a whole New Jersey, or you have something that you specify, or what's your expertise, your area? I know, guys, we're getting away from the class, but the class is pretty. So this is good. So Essex County, Morrison, Union. Really? Where's Lakeland Bank area? Summit. There you go. Got a 625. It works as well. She said first 750. You know why? Again, she wants those vanilla loans. She doesn't want to deal with headaches. Right? That's it. So, sorry, I like headaches, so you cannot work with me. I'll be your headache. But anyway, again, I just like to joke around. Guys, loan officer, 908-522-6555. Give her a try. 625 score is good. Okay. Where's Arlene? Arlene, is this what you work with? No? I said no. Edith says yes. I know. Anyway, all right, back to this. Progress, qualifying buyers. We covered all this. Covered. Oh, RESPA. RESPA violations. Let's stop here for a second real quick. RESPA violations. You guys already know Real Estate Settlement Procedures Act, or Closing Procedures Act, is about knowing the costs of closing, for instance, or the procedures of closing. So it stipulates that the parties to certain purchase transaction must be given accurate information reflecting their closing costs. It also prohibits certain business practices that are not considered to be consumers in the consumer's best interests. So the licensee's risk regarding RESPA primarily relates to failing to ensure that the consumer is informed about his or her rights under the law, giving or receiving illegal kickbacks. So that's under that's section 8. You don't really need to know it, but I'm just letting you know. It's section 8 of RESPA. Says you cannot receive any kickbacks. RESPA currently requires lenders to provide a copy of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau loan information booklet that you guys know. It's the Your Home Loan Toolkit, and they have to provide that along with the application. The booklet explains RESPA provisions, general settlement costs, and the required closing disclosure form. So you guys remember this from chapter 17, real estate finance, right? And then we talked about it again in closings, chapter 21, right? In fact, the lender must provide an estimate of closing costs within 3 business days following the borrower's application. So they have to provide a loan estimate, the LE. You guys remember this, right? Yes? LE, loan estimate, great. And that has to be provided within 3 business days of receiving the application. And then, right before closing, 3 business days before closing, they have to provide the CD, or closing disclosure. And there must not be a variation from these two. If there is something that varied from them, it has to be stipulated in the CD. It has to say LE said this, CD says this. Like, what is the difference? You guys remember that? We went over the closing disclosure form in detail, and I showed you where the differences were, right? And also give the opportunity to the buyer to review the final settlement statement 1 business day prior to closing. Tina, you're having a lot of fun over there. All right, RESPA. RESPA specifically prohibits any fee or kickback paid to a party for a service when the party not actually rendered the service. So, if I refer a deal to Edith, right? If I refer a deal to her, can Edith pay me? Anybody? Can she pay me for referring a client? Let me know in the chat real quick. No. Ed was quick on the draw. No. I cannot get paid any type of compensation unless I'm also licensed and rendered part of the service. So if I rendered part of the service, then she might be able to share commission with me. But then again, I'll have to be part of her company as well, right? So be careful with that. Insurance companies, the same thing. We cannot force or pay anything as far as a referral. So fees, they are strictly forbidden. Fees are strictly forbidden right there. We'll be getting paid for title services, appraisals, inspections, surveys, loan issue, credit report, and attorney services. So I cannot get paid on any of these if I refer all of these to a client. There's so many other ways to get referral fees, legal referral fees. So talk about it at a different time. There's so many ways. All right. Right here, the sharing of commissions and the payment of referral fees among cooperating brokers and multiple listing services are not RESPA violations. So if we're sharing between brokers or on the MLS, these are not RESPA violations. These are okay. State laws prescribe how licensees must handle escrow money or earnest deposits that they receive. Those laws usually state that a broker must hold money received. Must hold money received in connection with the purchase or lease of real property in a trust fund account or escrow account. The type of account and financial depository are specified, and the broker must record receipt of the money. Again, going a little fast because we're going to have the state-specific portion on this. So we must record the receipt of the money and place that money in the trust account within the specified period of time. So we cannot hold on to the money. We have to immediately drop it into that escrow account because it's not our money. Otherwise, it's going to be called commingling, right? You guys remember commingling? What is commingling? Can you guys tell me? I mean, I'll just throw it out there. Damn. Ed's on fire. Look at that. Doesn't give you guys a chance to do anything. Mixing money. All right? DJ mixing money. Yes. Commingling is mixing funds that belong to other people with our funds. Okay? Right? So put your money and client money into one account. All right. So with that being said, guys, what is conversion? What is conversion? Come on, DJ Ed. You're doing great. Mr. Badur, using it. So, it's your money, but I mix it with my money, and then I use your money. That's conversion. I converted from being yours, now being mine. Illegal. So So be very careful. Right? We already covered this. Be very careful with commingling and conversion. That would be mixing personal or company funds with client funds. And this is ground for revocation or suspension of real estate license. Okay? They give you cash, run and deposit. Not run and use it or think, hey, it's only $100. Only going to use $100. I need it right now. I'll restore it tomorrow. The moment you do that, that's it. You've touched your money. You're done. Okay? It was a good review, right? With the introduction of a loan officer. It was all planned, by the way. All right? Let me know if you have any questions. YouTubers, I see 4 people there. YouTubers, ask questions. Consumers, if you have any questions. No? Like I said, it was more like a review, and from now on, every single chapter is going to be kind of a to bring back memories. Day 1. And I'm going to ask about agency again, so might as well get used to it. Questions? You guys have the nerve to interrupt me during class, right? But you don't interrupt me during the Q&A, the right time to ask questions, the Q&A? But just gave me the look. Hey. Time for questions. Come on, Q&A. All right. That's a great. Not a question, but okay. I appreciate that. Have you guys been doing so real quick, and then we're gonna have you guys been doing the review questions at the end of the chapter? You've been nailing all the answers. Got 100% on the answers. I see a lot of heads shaking. No, great. That's awesome that you guys are not getting it correct. What's bad is if you're not asking me why it's A instead of B or C instead of D. That's where I'm here to help. You guys need to understand that. When you review, when you go search, do you understand why it's not the right answer, what you answered? Okay. All right. Arlene says, no. Changing a lamp, more or less. Anyway, that's where you have to ask the questions and point it out, like Mr. Badur does every time before start, right? That's I'm sure most of them are from the reviews, but ask questions. This is key, right? Otherwise, you're going to run into the state exam or the school exam, for that matter. You're going to blank because if you're not, like Lula just wrote, understand the question that the way it's asked, yeah, it's going to be a little tricky. But if you don't, that's what I'm saying. If you have difficulty understanding it, right? I'm not saying you, Lula, but I'm saying in general to all of you. If you have a difficulty understanding it, then when you get to the school exam or state exam, it's the same. You'll always have difficulty, right? And it doesn't matter how you ask the question. Like some people, to me, they go like, "Oh, bro, I don't know how to ask like English second language or whatever it is." I don't care what language you speak. Send it to me in your language. I'll figure it out. If that's the issue, if you know how to explain in your language or whatever you're most comfortable with, do it. I'll figure it out. All right? I'm fluent in Google. Okay? So I'll figure it out. Google Translate is amazing. But if not, I have great resources as well. That's not a problem. All right, guys? Please promise me that you'll send me questions. Please promise me that you're studying and you need my help. Because I don't believe it. I would like to believe that everybody's 100%. Like, comes the exam and you're going to all pass. My numbers just went up, by the way. My numbers just went up. The other day I had a 70% passing rate, like on the first shot. And that was amazing. Because usually the first time people test, they fail. And it's okay. Because that's when you realize, you get slapped in the face and realize, oh, this is the test. All right, I wasn't ready for that. Okay? And then you take it again and you pass. But please, let me help you nail this the first time instead of keep on coming. All right? Is that a deal, guys? Give me a thumbs up. Is that a deal? Great. All right, guys. So looking forward to helping everybody. Looking forward to get everybody to pass. Hold on. I'm sorry. How often do you give the test? So the test is always 1 week after you complete the course. So that would lead us to every 2 weeks, more or less, having a test, more or less. Because we have the night classes like this difference. Every 2 weeks, there's going to be a test more. Okay. Now with the holidays, I'm just giving you giving you a heads up. We had the test for the 28th, which was Saturday, right? I moved it for a couple of reasons. One of them is Thanksgiving, right? The other one is because of the delay from yesterday, we didn't have class, and I apologize for that. But because of that delay, we're going to finish the math class actually on Monday, which is great because then again, holiday was not going to help, right? So even in around Christmas and New Year's, I'm going to be moving the exams there. So we'll figure it out. It might even be during the week. I'm not sure, but we'll figure it out. It's just to make sure I accommodate for everybody. But regardless, the point still is ask questions. Let me help you pass. All right? Let's do this. All right, guys. You have an amazing evening. I'll see you tomorrow morning if you're going to join the morning class. If not, I'll see you at 5:30 p.m. Have a good night.